Hey there. It's so great to see you. So, today I'm going to be reading you a short story. It's one of my favorite books, and I love to read it to the children that I teach. We actually just had book day the other day, and I read this to them. And it's a book that has unbelievably beautiful art. And it has, it goes through the story of the lighthouse keeper. So we'll meet the lighthouse keeper in the beginning, but the real meat of the story is centered around the lighthouse and how it goes through the seasons. And I just think it's really beautiful, and it's beautifully written as well. It's a book by Sophie Blackall. It has a very interesting shape. So let me show you. So this book, as you can see, it's very tall, right? Very tall. And you can see it's tall so that the lighthouse can fit all the lighthouse art. So you can see, it's called Hello Lighthouse. Hello, Lighthouse. So you can already see the art that's being presented. You have these rays of light shining out to the sides. And you can see the keeper. He's right there. And we can see Sophie Blackall, Caldecott medalist. And then if we turn the book around, we can see that there is a cross section of the lighthouse. And we can see on top we have the actual lamp. We can see dining room, living quarters. Looks like the kitchen, storeroom. I don't even know what that room is. But you can see all the water coming in from down here. And we have the rocks down below and all the waves crashing on the rocks. So, I love this book, and I'll show you why. Let's open it up, shall we? I love that sound. We have a selection of different items that we're going to learn about. We have some twine or yarn. You can see the yarn going into this needle and thread. We have his pen. We have a letter. Alice, my love, while I await your arrival, I have. That's covered up. And we see the keeper, and it looks looks like his wife, right? His wedding picture. And a ship crashing. Here we go. You can see it's really cool because it is water and it looks like water and it looks like it's moving, but it almost like is in the shape, all the little waves are in the shape of fish. It almost looks like it's entirely fish. But when you take it in its totality, it doesn't. And you have this big line, the ship moving around the lighthouse. For Susan Rich, editor, friend, and beacon of light. Hello, Lighthouse by Sophie Blackall. On the highest rock of a tiny island, at the edge of the world, stands a lighthouse. It is built to last forever, setting its light out to sea, guiding the ships on their way. You can see the little whale weather vane on the top. The lighthouse setting its light out. And then we see, looks like it is sunset. And we see the ship coming in, being brought in and guided by the light. From dusk to dawn, the lighthouse beams. Hello. 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 Hello, lighthouse. Here we get that view of the lighthouse. The cross section. The new keeper arrives to replace the old, to carry on tending the light. He polishes the lens and refills the oil and trims the burned end of the wick. Throughout the night, he winds the clockwork that keeps the lamp in motion. During the day, he gives the round rooms a fresh coat of sea green paint. He writes in the logbook and threads his needle and listens to the gathering wind. So you can see him threading his needle and listening to the gathering wind. This is him being dropped off. So you can see the wind swirling. The wind takes a deep breath. And blows and blows. Hello. 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 As you can see, looks like dusk again. The keeper boils water and drinks his tea as he fishes for God from the window. He sets the table and hums a tune and wishes for someone to talk. can see he's got his cod that he fished that day. He's going to sit down and eat it by himself. Here, I'm going to read this for you. Every few days, he writes her a letter and throws it into the waves. He tends the light and writes in the logbook and waits for her reply. So let's see if I can read this. Here we go. It says, I wish you were here. The wind blows and the waves crash, and the sun rises and sets. And I long for you to join me. We will be together. And I will catch fish for our suppers. Also, I need a haircut. That's really cute. So you can see he has these bottles filled with his letters, throwing them out to sea. And there is his wife. Let me give you a full view. Big waves. The sky grows dark, and waves rise and crash. Hello! 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 I love the art in this. You can see it's almost like it almost looks like coral, or maybe like starfish feet, you know? Very beautiful portrayal. You can feel the movement in the art. There he is. The keeper looks through his telescope. The tender arrives, bringing oil and flour and pork and beans. So you can see it's the tender, the ship that comes to bring him supplies. Da, da, da. Da, da, da. And his wife. And you can see her being taken up by like a pulley. Almost like she's on a zip line. It's really cute. And I love her nautical, I don't know if you can say that, the nautical themed, I don't know if that's like her dress or what, but yeah. He shows her, oh yeah, it is her dress. Cute. He shows her around the round rooms of their house. He tends the light and writes in the logbook and sets the table for two. And you can see them dancing together. You can see how happy they look. You can barely see it. It's covered in fog. The fog makes everything disappear. A bell must be rung to warn the ships. Clang, clang, clang. I'll give you a few of this. So you can see their boat crashed. One thick night, disaster strikes. A boat is wrecked on the rocks. Not a moment to lose, the keeper rows out. He pulls 3 sailors from the deep black sea. The deep black sea. He tends the light and writes in the logbook and wraps the sailors in blankets. So you can see him in his rowboat going to save them, the sailors. And they come back inside. You can see them all getting their tea, wrapping up in blankets, and drying off their clothes. You can see the stars. So many. You can see them up there. The sea turns into a carpet of ice. I love that imagery. A carpet of ice. Hello. 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 And then you can see the seals on the ice. The snow covering the rocks. And I love the depiction of the horizon. Okay. You can see he's not doing too good. One dawn, the keeper begins to sneeze. By dusk, he is terribly ill. His wife is everywhere. All at once. Running up and down spiral stairs. She tends the light and feeds him broth and chips ice off the lantern room windows. She sits by his side and writes in the logbook the minute his fever breaks. So I think this is a really cute moment. You can see her by his bedside, taking care of him. She looks so determined. Just look at her face. She's a woman on a mission. And look, they're flying a kite up there. They're having a real Jack and Rose moment. Do-do-do-do-do-do. The icebergs pass by on their journey south. The whales pass by on their journey north. Hello. 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 You can see the iceberg. And of course, as most of us probably know, that iceberg is much larger underneath the surface. So this is only a fraction of how big it is. So we see the whales. They look happy, happy little whales. Now this is one of my favorite pages. Inside, actually, we're going to do it this way. I'm going to turn it upside down. And you can see it like this. Inside the lighthouse, the woman walks around and around the room. So you can see them going around the room. Her husband boils water and helps her breathe in, And out. Do that again. Breathe in. And out. Good. He tends the light and writes in the logbook. You can see she's pretty big. And notes the birth of their child. This is so freaking sweet. You can see she's just looking on with such happiness, but she's so tired. You can see her hair is all over the place. He's just staring down at his baby, making a log just like he does for everything. We have northern lights. And I love how they have the reflection down here. The sky erupts in swirls of green. Hello. 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 You can see them in the window, looking at the northern lights with their baby. The tender arrives, bringing oil and flour and pork and beans and the mail. There's the letter. And look, their little baby is growing up a little bit. She's playing with toys. Along with fresh books and news from the land, there's an unexpected letter with the Coast Guard seal. The keeper winds the clockwork and polishes the lens, just as he's always done. He tends the light and writes in the logbook, and knows that it's not for long. Together, they watch the horizon. You can see the way that the water looks a little choppy. Like that's the little details I love. You can see them all up there with their with their telescopes. There he is, our lighthouse keeper, looking stoic. And our little birds. Birdie. The seagulls wishing him goodbye. The Coast Guard arrives with a brand new light and installs the machine to run it. No lamp to fill, no wick to trim. The keeper's work is done. He climbs to the top of the spiral stairs and closes the logbook for good. They pack their belongings into the boat and wave farewell to the gulls. When I do this with my kids, I'll say goodbye to the gulls. Bye, gulls. It's really cute. The water's a little calmer now. And you can see they're leaving, the gulls following back after them. Beyond the breakers, they all look up. Goodbye, lighthouse. Goodbye. 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 And it's appropriate that the lighthouse is shining its light as they leave. And I want you to notice the way it brings it back to the very beginning. This is the same passage that you have in the very beginning of the book. On the highest rock of a tiny island, at the edge of the world, stands a lighthouse. Look at those clouds. The way that they did the art. It's amazing. It is built to last forever, sending its light out to sea. The fog rolls in and the fog rolls out. The waves rise and crash. The wind blows and blows. Hello. Hello. Hello? Over the waves, across the bay, a light on the land beams back. Hello. 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 Hello, lighthouse. And you can see they're shining a light to the lighthouse. And we see them standing as a family, her in that fun dress, her daughter in bunny slippers. So cute. Staring out into the sea, looking at the lighthouse they used to live in. And the reminders of their life there. The rocks, the letters, the tender, their love, the lighthouse, the whales, and their child, beaming the light back to the lighthouse. Okay, last thing. I'm going to read you this passage. This is her, Sophie Blackall, talking about lighthouses. I just want to read this to you. I think it's fun. I used to think of lighthouses from the point of view of a ship, the faithful sentinel standing tall, beaming its light out to sea, warning of dangerous rocks, guiding sailors to safety. But one day I was at a flea market, and an old print showing a cutaway interior of a lighthouse jumped out at me. The drawing made me think of what it would be like to live inside a lighthouse, to make my home in those tiny round rooms, miles from land, all alone. I delved into research, looked at pictures, read books, visited museums, and climbed the towers of lighthouses from New York to Newfoundland. I learned that the keeper's job was to tend the light from sunset to sunrise, and to never, ever let it go out. Sometimes the keeper had an assistant, someone to play checkers with and help share the night watch. They did not always get along. One keeper and his assistant apparently annoyed each other so much that they went a year without speaking and ate all their meals facing in opposite directions. Often families lived together on lighthouses. Some had as many as 11 children. Hundreds of women served as lighthouse keepers. Some replaced a husband or father, but many were appointed for the job. Several times during the night, the keepers would have to wake up and wind the clockwork that turned the lens. They would trim the burned ends of the wick and fill the lamp with oil, which they carried in a heavy bucket from the tank in the cellar all the way up the spiral stairs. They kept the lens free of dust so it would shine brightly, polishing the soot away each morning. Curtains were drawn on sunny days to prevent a fire in the lens. The lantern room windows had to be kept spotlessly clean. In winter, this meant chipping away ice, which was a dangerous job. The keepers held tight to special handles attached to the outside and sometimes tied themselves to the railing so they wouldn't be blown away in strong winds. In foggy weather, a signal was sounded to warn ships when the light could not be seen. In the early days, the keepers did this by hand, striking a bell with a hammer every 20 seconds, which would have been exhausting, not to mention loud. In time, these were replaced by clockwork bells, and in larger lighthouses, steam-driven foghorns. Some lighthouse keepers learned to sleep through the din of the horn. Others nearly went mad when the fog lasted for days. There was constant maintenance, keeping the salt water and wind-battered lighthouse freshly painted, along with the usual household jobs, washing, cooking, mending, and stoking the coal stove. Water was pumped from the tank by hand. Waste from kitchen slops and chamber pots was thrown into the sea. Everything that happened had to be meticulously recorded each day in a logbook. Little things like the weather, how much oil was used, and which ships passed by, as well as big things like births and deaths and shipwrecks. But even with these daily chores, there was a lot of spare time to fill. Keepers read books and played solitaire, knitted and embroidered, made model ships or tiny lighthouses to pass the quiet hours. Some keepers made kites to fly from the lantern gallery, or fished to supplement the tedious dinners of beans. Others brought seeds and sacks of dirt from the mainland to plant gardens in among the rock pools. Everything the keeper needed had to be brought from shore by a supply ship called a tender. The tender came every few months and brought the oil to run the lamp. It brought food to last a season, mostly canned and dried, and water in barrels for drinking and washing. Collected rainwater was never enough. The tender brought boxes of pencils and a new pair of socks. It brought the lighthouse library, one of the many small cupboards stocked with books that made the rounds of all the lighthouses. The tender was the lighthouse keeper's contact with the rest of the world. It brought news from shore and letters from loved ones, and most importantly, for the isolated residents of a lighthouse, it brought visitors, a doctor or the district inspector or even the keeper's spouse. The tender also took things away, such as a retiring keeper or letters home. For some, it was unbearable to wait months between sending and receiving mail, so they trusted their letters to the sea. One keeper at the Needles Lighthouse in Great Britain sent all his messages in bottles and estimated they only took 5 days to reach land. If the lighthouse was built on a rock or ledge, it was impossible for the tender to come too close. A small boat might be used to row ashore, or if the sea was too rough, a winch was used to haul supplies and visitors from the deck of the tender to the lighthouse on a bosun's chair, a canvas seat attached to a rope that swung precariously above the waves, often drenching the passenger in the process. Lighthouse keepers devoted their lives to protecting ships at sea. They risked their lives to rescue the shipwreck survivors. Many lost their lives in the attempt. Every lighthouse comes with stories of bravery and monotony, routine and adventure. Electric lights began to replace oil lamps in the 1920s. Soon after, automated machines replaced clockwork and the keeper's work was done. Lighthouses stand empty now, but the stories shine on. The lighthouse in this book is based on one I stayed in on a tiny island at the northern tip of Newfoundland. But as Herman Melville writes in Moby Dick, it is not down on any map. True places never are.